Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we now resume the opening session of the United Nations International Meeting on the question of Palestine. We will start with a keynote presentation entitled Engaging for Peace, the International Year of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, by Mr. Oscar Fernandez-Taranco, United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs. So the committee is very appreciative that you have agreed to share your vast insight acquired through years of experience dealing with political issues, including the question of Palestine. So I'm glad to give you the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates and colleagues, it is a great honor to address the distinguished participants of the United Nations International Meeting on the question of Palestine. I wish to thank the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People for organizing this important event. Allow me to also express my gratitude to the Government of Ecuador for hosting this forum on engaging for peace in the Middle East. On 26 November 2013, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed the year 2014 the International Year of Solidarity with the Palestinian People. This General Assembly decision constitutes a strong recognition of the commitment of the international community to supporting the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people and also to finding lasting peace between Israel and Palestine. I wish to emphasize on this occasion that we believe strongly that Palestinian and Israeli interests are not mutually exclusive. Indeed, they depend one on the other. Neither side will fully benefit from peace, security, and the self-determination that they deserve if the other side does not also benefit from them. We are now at a moment of truth in the Middle East peace process. The possibility of achieving a durable solution to the decades-old conflict is in reach and must be seized. We have repeatedly said that the status quo is not sustainable. And indeed, we see a continued slow deterioration of the situation on the ground. During the International Year of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, which also coincides with a renewed international effort on the peace process, we must do our utmost to support Israelis and Palestinians in finding a solution to the conflict which will contribute to achieving increased security, stability, and development in the Middle East. Palestinians have the right to realize their legitimate aspirations to self-determination and statehood. For too long now, the occupation has deprived Palestinians of dignity and freedom. Popular uprisings in the Middle East and around the world in recent years have demonstrated that people intensely yearn for dignity and will not tolerate oppression. People aspire to have a say in crafting their future. A peaceful, secure, and prosperous society cannot be built without a respect for the realization of fundamental rights and freedoms of its citizens. Creating a vibrant, free, and independent Palestine where people live with dignity and security necessitates a negotiated, comprehensive solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Palestinians have the opportunity to strive for this through a two-state solution. A two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict encompassing an end to the occupation since 1967, with a just solution to the plight of refugees and a resolution on the question of Jerusalem will secure Palestinians a viable and sovereign state. Concurrently, Israelis have the right to live in peace and without threats to its security within an internationally recognized border. A sovereign state of Palestine, living alongside a secure state of Israel, will provide the historic opportunity for freedom and stability for the two peoples. The two states and their citizens must recognize each other's legitimate rights and take responsibility for strengthening security with regard to each other. The fragile situation on the ground underscores the urgency of finding a solution to the conflict. No tangible progress on the political track could spark further violence and inflict more suffering. In the West Bank, the continuing occupation restricts freedom and threatens the rights of the Palestinians. The accelerating illegal Israeli settlement activity undermines the prospects for a peace deal. We are gravely concerned by last week's announcement by Israel of plans to advance over 2,300 settlement units, many of which are deep inside the West Bank. We reiterate that, pursuant to international law, settlements are illegal and cannot be reconciled with Israel's stated intention of pursuing a two-state solution. This development is particularly untimely against the backdrop of a volatile situation on the ground and as U.S.-led peace negotiations have reached a critical stage. The peace efforts are being effectively hindered by violence and incitements from all sides. We are concerned over the rising tension with respect to the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, in Jerusalem. We call upon all parties to show the utmost restraint regarding the holy compound. Incitement or provocations from any quarter must cease, and the sanctity of holy sites of all faiths must be respected. Ladies and gentlemen, establishing a free, democratic Palestinian state where people can live with dignity and secured livelihoods is the best guarantee for sustainable peace and development side by side with Israel. However, the lessons from the Arab Spring have underlined that gaining freedom and consolidating stability in a society does not take place overnight. Balanced and lasting democratic development requires adhering to the principles of the rule of law, respecting human rights, and strengthening democratic processes and responsible institutions. A culture of democracy, inclusivity, participation, and dialogue must be nurtured and supported. Moreover, economic opportunities and jobs are vital for a viable and stable society. The international community is, together with Palestine, actively engaged in strengthening local capacities for stability and for development. At the beginning of this month, an international conference of the Initiative for the Palestinian Economy, chaired by Mr. Tony Blair, the Quartet's representative to the Middle East peace process, brought together in Prague around 100 international business people, investors, financiers, Palestinian Authority officials, and key figures of the Palestinian private sector. The conference aimed at discussing ways to support political and economic initiatives aimed at transformational change and growth in the Palestinian economy. The UN country team in Palestine recently launched the first United Nations Development Assistance Framework for the State of Palestine for 2014 through 2016. This summarizes the collective vision and response of the United Nations to prioritize development needs in the occupied Palestinian territories. It is based on a consultative process between 19 United Nations agencies with government and civil society partners, and is closely aligned with the Palestinian National Development Plan. International support is needed in bolstering democratic governance, civil society, and gender equality in a way that aptly addresses the needs of Palestinian society. Here, parliamentarians and civil society organizations play a key role. With respect to South-South and triangular cooperation, the United Nations in Palestine has supported government efforts to promote cooperation by undertaking a stock-taking exercise of existing initiatives. This has helped to identify possible areas for future cooperation. As an example of critical South-South cooperation, the state of Rio Grande do Sul of Brazil and the Palestinian Ministry of Agriculture recently signed a memorandum of understanding for the technical exchange and cooperation in the field of agricultural and rural development. This cooperation gives priority to agricultural policies and information, exchange and introduction of agricultural technologies, dry land, water-saving farming, and agro-product trade promotion. Brazil is offering to train Palestinian experts, technicians, and farmers in Brazil according to the Palestinian needs. Both parties also agreed to strengthen cooperation and exchange agricultural science and technology, and to take an active consideration of promoting mutual export and import of agricultural products between the two countries. For example, Brazil is planning to import 100 tons of Palestinian olive oil and to increase the amount yearly. Palestinians will provide assistance to Brazilian farmers in olive growing. Ladies and gentlemen, we must continue to be concerned for the situation in Gaza and its suffering population. The security and humanitarian situation that reigns is increasingly worrisome. In recent months, we have seen more rockets being fired at Israel, and Israeli operations causing death or injury to civilians, undermining the ceasefire understanding of November 2012. We condemn both the rocket firing and the civilian deaths. Due to the closure of Gaza, the humanitarian situation deteriorates steadily. We reiterate our call to increase access and movement through the legitimate crossings. We also hope that UN construction projects in Gaza, which are critical for employment and relief for the population, would be approved in a much quicker fashion by the Israeli authorities. UNRWA also needs, without delay, additional funds to sustain critical emergency operations in Gaza. This is of fundamental importance. We call upon all donors to contribute favorably to the UNRWA's emergency appeals in this period. In our view, progress on Palestinian reconciliation within the framework of the PLO commitments and under the leadership of President Abbas is an essential step for achieving the two-state solution and finding lasting peace. The peace process and reconciliation don't have to be an either-or proposition. Efforts should be made on both fronts, in line with the provisions of Resolution 1860. We are also supportive of the prospects of elections, which are central to continuing state-building efforts in a manner that would anchor the democratic nature and foundations of the Palestinian state. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me congratulate you for your engagement in the International Year of Solidarity with the Palestinian People. The international community is needed more than ever to support the realization of a lasting solution to the Middle East peace process. This year, the United Nations hopes to witness the success of direct negotiations which brings about a comprehensive settlement based on a two-state solution according to which Israel and Palestine live side by side in peace with security and mutual recognition of each other's legitimate rights, including self-determination, with each state ensuring equal civil rights for all of its citizens. This peace will lay the foundation upon which a free, sovereign, and vibrant Palestinian society can be built. It will ultimately provide the Palestinian people with the opportunity to be free and to live in dignity, which they so rightfully deserve. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I thank Mr. Fernandez-Taranco for his thorough assessment of the current situation and his meticulous analysis of the requirements of the immediate and more distant future. We share your assessment that the Palestinian people have been denied their right, as well as freedom and dignity, for far too long, and the status quo is unacceptable and dangerous. We also thank you for presenting a useful example of South-South cooperation in Palestinian development, using an example of assistance provided by one of the countries in the region, which is a key theme of this meeting. May I also take this opportunity to thank you for the continued support that our committee and the Division for Palestinian Rights are receiving from your office in carrying out our mandate task. I thank you once again, sir, for your time and your important contribution for this meeting.